we created a supersaturated solution science fair project, and as you can see here, the products that we used were sodium acetate and water, sodium acetate Crisco and water, corn syrup, sodium acetate and water, baking soda, Crisco, baking soda, sodium acetate and water, and pretty much our goal was to create a supersaturated solution. Supersaturated solution. Well, it's a solution which contains a greater amount of some substance at a given temperature. Usually supersaturation can occur with just one crystal of the solution. This is why crystallization was created with various solutes besides water like corn syrup and baking soda. We formed a supersaturated solution out of sodium acetate and water, but we wanted to further our experiment. What we did was we added another solution to the mix in hopes of seeing if crystallization would still occur or if it would interfere. Okay, our initial question was, can we still create a supersaturated solution or crystals out of water with the addition of baking soda, Crisco, or corn syrup?
This project were corn syrup, Crisco, baking soda, and sodium acetate, H2O, a flask, graduated cylinder, Bunsen burner, tongs, apron, and gloves. Our hypothesis was that the baking soda would crystallize, whereas the Crisco and corn syrup wouldn't.
Required to complete this project include weighing 160 grams of sodium acetate and then putting it in a flask and adding 30 milliliters of water into that same flask. The second step is to put the flask on a hot plate, heat it, and gently stir it until the crystals are gone. Now what you're going to do is you're going to stir it with a stirring rod, and you have to be very careful. You have to remember to follow the safety procedures that you were taught at the beginning of the year when dealing with the hot plate. Now the third step includes you have to remove the flask from the heat using tongs. Remember to use it and let it cool down, but don't shake it or anything because that could interrupt the project. Now if you're going to do this experiment the way we did, you're going to have to use baking soda, corn syrup, or Crisco. Now you're going to have to put those ingredients after the first step. So right after you put the water and the sodium acetate into the flask, you'll add a small amount of those ingredients into the flask. You need a table. As you can see here, we have a different column with each of the solutions and their results. Now, for the sodium acetate and water, we saw several huge crystals covered at the bottom of the flask. With the sodium acetate, water, and baking soda, the bottom of the flask was covered with small crystals, but the crystals weren't as solid as the other solution. Now, for sodium acetate, water, and Crisco, the crystals were very evident, but there weren't many of them. Now, the sodium acetate, water, and corn syrup, they were very large, but very few crystals formed despite our hypothesis. Now, our hypothesis was wrong. We thought that it was not going to crystallize at all, but actually we found that it did. No matter what you do, as long as you add the same amount of sodium acetate to the solution and less water, it will crystallize. Our control variable was just the water and the sodium acetate. As you can see, it crystallized very well. We left it overnight, and here you can see that there's several crystals already formed on the bottom, and they're very large crystals. Now, with the other solutions, such as Crisco, water, sodium acetate, you see crystals, but it isn't as many, and there's still a lot of water in here, and the Crisco's at the top. So you can see the crystals down here. Now our corn syrup, sodium acetate, and water did crystallize, and the crystals are several, but they're very tiny compared to the other ones. The baking soda, sodium acetate, and water did crystallize, but the crystals are very loose and they aren't as strong as the rest of them, but there is several of them. Now our conclusion is that they did crystallize, every single one of them. No matter if there wasn't that many crystals, they still crystallized, not as much as sodium acetate and just water, but they did in fact crystallize in different ways, so that means that it is a supersaturated solution. Now our results are that the solution with baking soda did in fact crystallize. As you can see by the solution, the whole bottom is covered by crystals. Now in order to make this experiment work, you have to use the same amount of sodium acetate. Our independent variable was corn syrup, baking soda, and Crisco. Our dependent variable was crystallized substances appearing after independent variable was added to sodium acetate and water. Now our control variable, once again, is just the solution with sodium acetate and water. As you can see here, a group member, Yanni, is stirring carefully the solution. She has the stirring rod and she isn't physically touching the flask. And she has it over a hot plate and she's following the safety procedures that you should be following. Now here, you see our classmate Yesenia weighing the sodium acetate, making sure that it's 160 grams of sodium acetate. And here you see the Crisco. If you've never seen what Crisco looks like, this is our water and baking soda solution. Our corn syrup and water solution before anything happened to it, our sodium acetate, our baking soda, our Crisco and water and sodium acetate, and thank you.